Ezra Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Baba Basra, Daf Yud Gimel, and we will begin on Daf Yud Gimel Amid Aleph by the second line. V'lo yaseh traklin. In the Mishnah, it discussed that you have to, when you divide something, you have to give, everybody has to get a fair share. In other words, let's say you're dividing a chotzer, right? A chotzer means a courtyard. You have two houses, they face each other, and there's a common courtyard in between. And they share it, right? Hold on. Hello, Lewis. We just began.
I'm still walking home from shul.
All right. It's going to get earlier. Okay. So the Mishnah discussed that if you have a courtyard and this courtyard is let's say you have two houses facing each other, and there's a common courtyard in between. And they share it, so they both have the right to go on the other side of the courtyard that's farthest from their house, right? Now, let's say they decide they want to split up. They got into a fight, and therefore they want to split up. So a fair split up is that each one gets 4 amas, okay? 4 amas in front of one house and 4 amas in front of the other house. And therefore, the total courtyard has to be a minimum of 8 amas. Otherwise, the Mishnah says you don't split up. But the Mishnah doesn't say what happens if they still get into a fight and they have a courtyard of 6 amas, let's say, in between. Let's say a 6 amas in between. So if you split up and you give everybody 3 amas, nobody gets a full courtyard. So what's the din? So here we go. Hi, Steve, we just began. Second line from the top. Let's say you have a courtyard of 6 amas, right? 2 houses facing each other, and there's 6 amas in between, and they really, really can't get along with each other. And they need to split up, right? So maho, what's the din? Or let's say you don't even have to go into a courtyard. Let's say they own a traklin. The Mishnah says they own a hall. Let's say they own a hall, and it's impossible to split the hall. They own one wedding hall, 2 partners. They own one wedding hall, and it's impossible to split up. So what's the din? Mahu, what's the din? Rav Yehuda Amar, Rav Yehuda says, is dina de goyd or agud? There's a law that even if one wants to split up and the other does not want to split up, the one guy could say, okay, I'm forcing the split up over here. Either you come up with the money and buy me out, or I come up with the money and I buy you out, because I don't want to be a partner with you. So if it's impossible to split up, Rabbi Yehuda says that there's a way out of it. One can force the other to buy him out. Okay, that's very important. Rav Nachman says, Leis dina de goyd or agud. There's no din of you buy me out, or agud, I buy you out. There is no din. In other words, I don't want to split up. I want to be in this stupid partnership, and that's it. I'm not, I want the partnership to remain as is. So that's the machlekes, and this is the whole topic of today. Rav Yehuda and Rav Nachman. Rav Yehuda says you can force a split up, and Rav Nachman says you can't force a split up. Amalei Rava Rav Nachman. So Rava said to Rav Nachman, Lididach, according to you, the Amrit you said, Les dina de goyd oyagod. There's no such a din of I buy you out or you buy me out. That's it. You always remain partners. Now, what happens? The Gemara says, Bechar, you have an older son, Upashit, and the next son, right? One is the older son, and one is the second son. Now, the halacha is that a Bechar takes pi shnayim. He takes double, and the regular son takes a normal share. So he takes a double portion. Shehniach lehem aviyam. The father left to them eved, a slave, which is slave. You can't split a slave, right? One is supposed to get 2/3, and the Bechar is supposed to get 2/3 of that slave, and the regular son is supposed to get 1/3 of that slave. Ubehema tmeya, or they get a non-kosher animal. You see, a kosher animal, you can shecht it and split it. But if you have to hold on to the one non-kosher animal, so how do you split that between Ketzad Oisin? What are you going to do over there? You say that we forever have to remain partners. So how are the two brothers going to remain partners in a non-kosher animal? Amalei, so Rav Nachman answers, it's very simple. Sha'ani Oima, I would say, he works for one of the brothers, the one that's not the Bechor, for 1 day. And for the Bechor, he'll work for 2 days. So that's the simple way to split things up. So the Gemara says, Meisvei, I'm going to prove to you that you can't force. This is a question against Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says you can always force the split up. If one of the partners says, I want to split up, he can force the hand of the other one to buy him out, or he buys the other guy out. So let's see the following Mishnah in Masechta Chagiga. Misha chetzia evod v'chetzia ben chayr. A man was a half a slave. He was a half an eved Kanaini. So he's a goyish slave, a half a goyish slave, but half he's a free Jew. Now, how could he be a half and a half a Jew? The answer is he was owned by two partners. And one of the partners liked him and freed him. The other partner said, you're going to still remain my slave. So he's a half an Eved and a half a free person. So what's the din? Ovid es rabbi, yom echad. He works for his master 1 day, right? The one that did not free him. Ves atzma yom echad, and he works for himself 1 day. So he alternates his days of work. 1 day he works for the master, and 1 day he works for himself. So I guess he keeps the money the days that he works for himself. And the days that he works for his master, well, it's a little funny. Masha kona eved kona rabbi. So maybe he'll end up with nothing. But anyway, that's the din. He works for his master 1 day and for himself another day. Divrei Beis Hillel. So says Beis Hillel. So comes along Beis Shammai, and Beis Shammai says, "Tikanta mis rabbi is atzmoi loy tikanta." You made everything work out for himself, for Mamonis, regarding the financial issues that you deal with, a half an Eved, half an Ben Chayrim, are all worked out, but his personal life is not worked out. Why? Because think about it. Who is he going to marry? Lisa Shifcha, can he marry a pure Goisha Shifcha Kananes Eina Yochel? He cannot marry because he's a half a Jew, and a Jew cannot marry a Goy. Lisa Bas Chayrim, can he marry a free Jew, right? A regular Bas Yaakov girl? Eina Yochel, he can't do that either, because he's still an Eved Kanaini. So he can't marry a Jewish. So Yibatal, should he not remain married? The world was not created only so that we should be fruitful and multiply. Every person, no matter what, even no matter how impossible it is for him to find the shidduch, is required to busy himself to procreate and to get married. Shenema, because there's a pasuk in Yeshaya that says, God didn't create the world to remain empty. It was created to be populated with people. Okay, so even though the pasuk in the Chumash says God told Adam Arishan to be fruitful and multiply, but here what the Gemara is stressing over here is that this is a very, very important mitzvah, and therefore we're going to ask something of the master, of this slave, this half a slave, the one that did not free him. Now, really, to free a slave, you get a big avera, because the Torah says you're not allowed to free an Eved Kanani. But here, in this situation, we're going to ask him to do an avera, so that the Eved, this half an Eved, half a Kanani, will be able to marry a regular Jewish girl. So that's what we say. Ella, the only solution here is, says Beis Shammai, we will force the issue over here. Since we're dealing with Pirya Verivia, we're going to force the issue, and we're going to force the master to free him. And we're going to require the Eved. Now, he doesn't want to free a slave for no money, right? So we're going to require the Eved that's now going to get free to owe the master the money for freeing him. Let's say a half a Eved is worth $50,000. So we're going to force the master to free him. And then this former Eved will now owe his master $50,000. So he bought himself out. So the Gemara, the Chazru Beis Hillel, and here's a point. Beis Hillel thought about it and they retracted. Lahiris Kedivei Shammai, to paskin like Beishamai, that not that you remain forever a Chetzi Eved, a Chetzi Ben Chayrim, but actually we force the issue that the rabbi, the master has to free him. Now, the question over here is, it's only because there's a big issue of who he can marry. Had it not been for that issue, you can't force a sale. You could remain things in limbo. So this would be a question against Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says if one partner doesn't like the partnership, he can force the other partner to buy him out no matter what. He could twist his arm and make him buy him out. And here we say not so. It's only because we're dealing with a big mitzvah of who he can marry do we force the master to be bought out. But if it's not for that mister, if it's not for that issue, then there would be no buyout over here, no forced buyout. So this is a question against Rabbi Yehuda. And says the Gemara, Shana Hocha over here is different. The Agoid Ika, Goid Leka. Very interesting answer. Over here, the slave could actually buy himself out. He could come up with the money eventually and pay back the master that's freeing him. But think about it the other way. Can the master buy the part of the Eved that's a Jew and make him now an Eved Knaini? The half of him is a regular Jew already because he was freed by the previous master. And you cannot buy a Jewish person to become an Eved Knaini, right? A Jewish person can only become an Eved for 6 years. That's it. So since it doesn't go in reverse, it's not buy me out and I buy you out. It's only one way. It's the Eved buying himself out, but it's not the Adain can buy the other half of the Eved. So since it cannot go both ways, then you can't force the issue. But if it could go both ways, then you could force the issue. Tashma, come in here. Shnei Achin, you have two brothers. Echad Ani, one's a poor brother. The Echad Ashir, and one's a rich brother. Okay? V'hiniach lehem avim, their father died and left them merchatz, either a bathhouse, ubei sabad, and a place where people crush olives, an olive press. So asan l'sachar, if it's something that's rentable, so how do you split that up, right? It's only one bathhouse, one olive press. So asan l'sachar, if they could rent it out, so they should rent it out and hasachar le'emsa, and the rent money will be split evenly. Asan la'atzmai, but if this it's not rentable, right? Because it's a private, let's say merchatz or a private press beis habad. So Hare Ashir Oimel Ani, the rich brother can say to the poor brother, no splitting over here. We go to Amud Beis. Kach lecha avodim, he like mocks his brother and says, try to get your slaves to warm up the bathhouse, because to run a bathhouse you need a lot of slaves to help it run. Then you could use the bathhouse. And so but I'm not buying you out. The rich person cannot say I'm not buying you out. Or the rich person can say, tough noogies will remain partnership, and I'll use the merchatz because I could afford slaves, and you'll never use the merchatz because you can't afford slaves. Or kach lecha uboy v'asei beis habad, bring olives and come use the olive press. In other words, I have loads of olive trees, so I can always use the olive press. You don't have any olive trees, so too bad. That's it. You get nothing from this partnership. So we see from there that you can't, the poor person, the poor brother cannot force the other rich person to buy him out. So we see not like Rabbi Yehuda. Answers the Gemara, same answer. Hossam over there, nami goid ika. There's only the one way to buy him out. It's either the rich brother buys out the poor brother, but agoid leka, but the poor brother cannot buy the rich brother out because he doesn't have the money to buy his brother out. And therefore, since it cannot go both ways, you cannot force the issue over here. So even Rabbi Yehuda would agree in that scenario, you cannot force the issue. Tashma, come in here. Kol she'ilu yecholik ushmai olav cholkim im lav malan oisim edami. So here, there's a brisa that says that if you can divide it up, and the name will not change. You can divide up a chotzer, even though it's a small courtyard, and split it, and the name will not change, then you divide it up. Wherever it's possible to divide up, you divide up. Im lav, if it's something undividable, let's say a non-kosher animal, or let's say a hall, or anything that's non-dividable. It belongs to one and not the other. There's only one of them. Mal and oisim bedama, and you can force the issue and make sure that the other, either one buys each other out. Either you buy me out or I buy you out. So here's a clear brisa that says you can force the issue, not like Rav Nachman, who said you cannot force the issue. So the Gemara says, you're right, Tanoihi. This, I agree, and I'll agree to you that it's a machlekes Tanoim, whether a person can force the issue to buy out a partnership that's not working out or not. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, let's say there's a courtyard 6 amos wide, and the guy says, one partner says, I don't care, Tulat Tashir, you take a normal courtyard, which is 4 amos, Vani Pachais, I'll take less. So you take 4 amos and I'll take less. And Shaiman Lai, that's a good split up and it works. Shimon ben Gamliel, Aimer of Shimon Gamliel says, Ain Shaiman Lai. The guy who's getting the 4 amos can say, no, I don't want that split. I want to remain as partners. Now, what is this machlekes? Why? He's getting 4 amos and the other guy's getting 2. Why would he not want to split like that? So the Gemara says, hey, Chidami, how do you read this brisa? If you can read it the way it's written, my Talmud Reb Shimon Gamliel. What's the reason Reb Shimon Gamliel that the other guy says that the other guy can refuse? The one that's receiving the 4 amos can say, I don't want the 4 amos, you keep it. Why not? He's getting more. So elalav chesuri mechasur v'achri. There's something missing in this brisa, and this is what it's meant to say. That one person, they're splitting up a courtyard. And one guy says, Tul ata shi'ir v'ani pachos. You take 4 amos, and I'll take 2 amos. You take a normal size courtyard, and I'll take less, and we split up. Shoymelay, that could work. The goyd or agud, and this is what's missing. If one partner says to the other brother, either I buy you out or you buy me out, nami shoymelay, that also can work. Also, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Ain't shoymelay, we don't listen to him." And this is the way Rab Nachman learns this brisa, that there is actual a machlokes tanoim, whether a partnership that's not working out, one guy could say, "Goyd or I goyd." Let's split up. Either you buy me out or I buy you out. So, and Rab Nachman aligns himself with Reb Shimon ben Gamliel that says, "Ain't shoymelay." If one guy still wants to stay with the partnership and doesn't want to take money or doesn't want to split up, ain't shoymelay, we don't listen to him. So, what do we see from there? That it's not a question against Reb Shimon Gamliel, it's not a question against Rab Nachman if you find a brisa that's not like him, because Rab Nachman will align himself with Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. If that's the way you learn pshat in this brisa, in this and there's brisa of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel that it's a machlekes tanoim. Says the Gemara, loy, it's not true. Loylim kidutani, loylim, you have to read the brisa the normal way. And they're just splitting up a little courtyard, 6 amos. One guy says, here, you take 4 amos, I'll take 2 amos. And Reb Shimon Gamliel, so the Tanakama says it works. And Reb Shimon Gamliel says, the other guy who says 4 amos says, I don't want it. I don't want to split with you. So my time with Reb Shimon Gamliel, what would be the reason Reb Shimon Gamliel? And why would the guy not want it? Why would the guy not want it? He's getting much more than his friend, and his friend is so nice to him. He says, you take 4, I'll take 2. Mishun the Amalei, because the guy who's receiving 4 amos will say, Ibadami, if you're going to buy me out, less, and you want me to pay you money because you're giving me more, less lidami lemeitelach. I don't have money to give you. B'matana, if you're just giving me the extra 2 amos as a gift, I don't want that either. Whoever gets gifts, who hates gifts, will live. So it's not good to get a gift. I don't want free gifts. So therefore, that's what the reason Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says he can stop this whole split up. But they're not discussing the concept of good or agud. Now, says the Gemara, a new topic. Amalei Abayel Rav Yosef. Rabbi says to Rav Yosef. It's a continuation of the topic. Called Rav Yehuda. That Rav Yehuda said that you can force a split up when a partnership is not working out. Either I buy you out or you buy me out. Where did Rav Yehuda get this? Rav Yehuda was a student of Rav, and he was also a student of Shmuel. So the Gemara says to Shmuel, he got his opinion because of his Rabbi Shmuel. He didn't, not Rav, but Shmuel. Now, where do you see Shmuel says you can force a split up? Now, we learned in the Mishnah, the Chisvei HaKodesh, Afal Pisha Shneim Roitzim, Lo Yachaloiku. If you have holy scrolls, let's say you have the whole Torah, and sometimes the Nevi'im and Ksuvim are in there, in one entire, rolled up scroll. So even though they all want to split it up, we don't split it up. If you have one Torah, Tanakh, that's owned by two people, we don't split it up. And Shmuel explained that Mishnah. Lo shanu, it wasn't taught in that Mishnah, ella bekerach echad, that it's one scroll that's rolled up, that you have the Torah, Nevi'im, Eksuvim, all in one scroll. Avo b'shnei krichos. Let's say you have two scrolls. You have one is the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, and one is the whole Navi. So then, Cholkin, you can split it up. Now, you can split it up. Now, the Torah is obviously, the one that's Torah is obviously worth more than the one that's Navi, since it's used more, okay? So then, what is Reb Shmuel trying to say? That even if they both don't want to, one of them, if they don't equally want to split, there's one of them that says he doesn't want to split. Shmuel says that the other one can force the issue and says, listen, I'm going to take the Torah and I'll buy you and give you more money for taking the Navi, or I'll give you the Torah and I'll take the Navi and you give me money. So Shmuel will say that you can force a split even though one doesn't want it. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda said that idea, he got his idea from Shmuel. And that's what the Gemara says. If you think less than that Shmuel doesn't hold of buy me out or I buy you out, my irya bekerach echad. Why did Shmuel say, oh, only if there's one, if the Torah and Nevi'im are in one scroll, you don't split it up. And I can understand if it's one scroll, you don't split it up, because how are you going to split it up? You're going to take a scissors and cut it. So therefore, you certainly don't split that. But even if they're in two different scrolls, you shouldn't split it up if one doesn't want to split up. So we see that Shmuel holds you can force the issue and split it up. Answers the Gemara, no. Tirgama Rav Shalman explained, Shmuel was talking about when they both agree to split up. Even if they both agree to split up, even though it's, this one is getting only Navi and the other is getting only Torah, but if they both want to agree to the split up, then you could split it up. But to force the issue, even Shmuel would hold that you don't force the issue. So there's no proof that Rabbi Yehuda, who says you can force a split, got his opinion from his rabbi Shmuel, because maybe Shmuel doesn't agree to that. So now the Gemara concludes this whole discussion. Amar Meima said, Hilkasa, the halacha is leidina de goyd ayaga. The halacha remains that you can force a split up. If they have one item and it's either belongs to one or the other, so one guy can force a split up. He can say either I buy you out, you buy me out, even though the other one refuses to do so. Amalei Rav Ashi Lameima Hod Rav Nachman. But you just what are you going to do about Rav Nachman? Rav Nachman holds that you can't do that. Amalei. So Ameimer said Lo Shmielei. What does it mean? I don't have to hold like Rav Nachman. I hold like Rav Yehuda that you can force a split. Says the Gemara, another minute over here. Veloy is not, you can force a split. Ravin bar Chanina, Rav Dimi bar Chanina. You have two brothers. One was Ravin and one was Rav Dimi, and they were both sons of Chinana. Shavak le avir avoid parta amasa. Their father left them two maids. Okay, two maids, nothing like having a good maid in your house. But Chada, one maid, Yoda Afio Bishula, knew how to bake and cook. But Chada Yoda, and one knew how to pilchot navla, to weave and sew. So, now how do you split that? Va'asa l'kamei de Rava, and Rava, they came to Rava, va'amalahu, and Rava said clearly, leis dina de goyd agod, they can't, you don't force a split over here. So basically, both maids work in one house one day and work in the other house the other day. So you see that Rava did not hold like Rav Meimar. Rava lived prior to Rav Meimar, certainly, and Rava paskin like Rav Nachman. So you see that the halacha is not like Rav Yehuda, but like Rav Nachman. And says the Gemara, Shana Osam over there is different. The Lamar Meboyle Tervaya, Lamar Meboyle Tervaya. Each one cannot get along. Each one needed two maids. You can't just have a maid that knows how to cook and bake. What are you going to do with your clothing? You need somebody that knows how to do laundry and to sew. And so therefore, each one needed both maids. So therefore, in that case, everybody agrees you don't force a split up. Ki kamale, If you're going to say, you take one maid and I take the other maid, live goid agudhu. That's not called buying each other out. So therefore, that didn't work over there. Wait a second. Kisvei kodesh, by kisvei kodesh, that you could that you do split it up, even though they're two different books. The Tevayim Abayale, each one would definitely benefit having a Chumash and a Navi. Shmuel said, that Shmuel says that if there's two different scrolls, you can force a split up over here. So how come by the maids, Rava did not force the split up over here? By Shmuel's case, there was a forced split up over here. And says the Gemara, now true. Shmuel's case was not a forced split up. It's actually they both agreed to split up. And therefore, Shmuel said, if there's two scrolls, you can agree to split up. And one takes the Navi, one takes the Torah, even though they technically both can use it. So therefore, the Gemara just going to remain that the halacha is like Rav Yehuda. Again, when there's something that cannot be split up, can one partner say, I'm forcing you to buy me out, or I buy you out? Rav Yehuda says you can force the issue, and that is what the halacha remains. Okay, we'll continue with Tana Rabbanan tomorrow, Be'ezus Hashem.